Yeah, and again, as we look at the ban pick for this game, what we saw was really great poke out of JDG from 369 from Yagao. I mean, Hope was the person we talked about. Looking through here is anyone's legend on the blue side. Jinx was talked about in the interview just before, but I see Twisted Fate from JDG from Yagao, which has been a comfort pick for him a while. I see Nidalee for Kanavi. So I feel like Rek'Sai Nidalee, like, we are getting these early game junglers that he wants to obviously dominate and take over in the first 15 minutes of the game.
Yeah, and I think giving him the last pick here definitely shows a bit of confidence. You know what? You made the jungle counter pick work. You didn't necessarily interact that much with your jungle counterpart, but
Yep.
you know, saving last pick for Kanavi here is something that definitely works out, and capitalizing off of the gold card TF into the Nidalee spear combo, which used to be extremely popular when Nidalee and TF were both meta a couple of years ago. Definitely something that we're looking out for here. And again, the poke, the Jayce coming out for 369. It seems like they're kind of getting everything that they want, but I did want to touch on that Jinx Hysterics because that is by far anyone's Legend's most pick 80 carry. And they've had a fair amount of success with it. Obviously, you know, we had JDG highlighting that in the pregame interview there. So expecting to see them do a little bit more damage here. Maybe the Caitlyn, like leaving the Caitlyn open was a bit of a bait to keep them off of that Jinx.
Well, I think it's interesting because for Betty, 13 games played, for Hope 10. Most played 80 carry by far for both of these ADs. So, yeah, it feels like a pick that needs to be talked about. I like that you bring it up. Betty versus Hope going to be interesting. I think more importantly is JDG invade the bottom side. We've also got ZDZ versus 369 in a more interesting matchup. I'm going to hold on that for now because for JDG, they've gone unspotted into this red side. And a deep path is going to enable that. They want to spot out with the bottom lane 2v2, but no one's there. A ward's going to see them in the tri-brush right about now.
They don't necessarily want to hard commit for the invade and walk into the passive Leona Q damage, right? They don't necessarily want that to happen. It won't always go favorable for them, so they're just going to get that vision down as a 4-man roaming squad, avoid most of the vision themselves, and but they are going to follow up here. So now that they know where the Leona is, it's much safer to just initiate the invade.
I just love it. JDG loop the loop. Yagao is getting zoned off right now by Forge. In the 3v3, it'll be interesting to see Kanavi hits the javelin toss. We begin with a bit of damage. Forge and Yagao looking at each other. And nothing really coming in. Xiaohao right in front of his buff, and Kanavi has to go back as Xiaohao just thinking he's there, but nope. Spots him on the brush, so Xiaohao can start the buff and we'll have a bit of a tempo advantage.
And yeah, anytime situations like that happen where the jungle kind of loses his nerve a little bit and they stare at each other, you're going to see the jungle on the invade fall behind. However, it is Nidalee versus Lee Sin, so that clear speed is going to be quite fast enough for it to basically not matter that much by the end of the first game.
Good point. Onto Gromp now as well, so keeping tempo just about here. Kanavi is going to be heading towards that top side though, and so is Xiaohao, which I find interesting. While there is setup through mid that you talked about for Kanavi, I think importantly enough as well, 369 ZDZ, bit of a volatile matchup in the Camille versus the Jayce, one we haven't touched on.
Yeah, it's both of these teams drafting for the mid-jungle 2v2. I think that did have a little bit of an understated impact, and the Nautilus Q's going wide in this particular one. But as I was saying, the mid lane 2v2 did have a particularly understated impact in the last game, just because Victor was constantly ahead in that matchup after the Rek'Sai gank. So I think that that's a situation that they're maybe looking to repeat here, and anyone's legend in the coach's room said, you know, we need a strong mid-jungle duo, we need to be able to execute on this, and they're looking for that here with the LeBlanc Lee Sin and a massive lead.
Yeah, already a good start here for Forge. It's taking TP into the matchup, but it is Electrocute versus Yagao with the Unskilled Spellbook. And now Kanavi up towards his top side. Xiaohao in river first, though. He's going to pick up Scuttles, so feels pretty nice here considering that ZDZ as well is pushing deeply into this top side. Wave's stuck here for the time being. And for 369, trying to abuse a bit of the range on this Camille as ZDZ continues walking up to the wave.
Yeah, a little bit of a surprise to see, generally speaking, how this matchup is going for the Jayce and Camille. It does get to be a little bit more interactive, a bit of skill after the first couple of waves, and Camille gets levels off. But
oh, good dredge line. That's a flash out. QiuQiu actually going in as well. He gets rooted down. Graviton will follow suit, but that's all it's going to be. Betty with no summoners available after Ignite comes down, and another win for JDG's bottom lane yet again here in game 2.
Yeah, and once Aphelios manages to get past the level 1 where he doesn't really have an ability, you have the ability to use the Gravitum snares, basically look for more effective traits in that situation. So, very nice hook and initiation from Missing. He's just been spacing very well in these small skirmishes and creating a lot of area for Hope to be able to do damage.
I think in the last game we saw that on the top bench, like his ability to create that space you talk about and fights as the Dredge Light interrupts the Zenith blade but gets rooted up anyway. But Kanavi here for the counter gank onto QiuQiu. The spear a little bit short. Xiaohao about to be grabbed him up, but again, won't matter as Kanavi just stops the inevitable. And Yagao, meanwhile, is moving up towards the top side. So JDG in all angles trying to benefit from the plays.
Yeah, and I really like to see when teams do this, right? They get the mid wave in, and then the mid laner shadows one side of the map, and the jungler shadows the other, to just kind of look for whatever play is going to end up yielding itself when the jungle shows himself, because the enemy mid is stuck.
Now, see that Forge makes the first move. Kanavi with the Javelin Toss hits Betty in the end. And Missing and Hope once again sticking towards Kanavi. So we're seeing the same amount of action in this early game, just not the blood to follow suit, Kelsey. And it's around this dragon. It's at 5 minutes now where it spawns, where both junglers hover around the bottom side. And in game number 1, it was the picks that came through from JDG that enabled that first dragon to be picked up, and that wave of momentum led them towards an early soul.
Yeah, and it looks like JDG are just going to continue to prioritize these dragons, but if they can get the dive on the Jinx, knowing that Nautilus is ahead on the recalls, they will take that. Doesn't look like that's going to happen. Betty's respecting it. Doesn't mind backing off too much either, because it is a cannon wave, so he's not going to lose too much. Cannon buying a lot of time, and even picking that one up, so probably should have just started the dragon in that particular situation.
Yeah. That's a good point. I mean, Kanavi goes back to his jungle, but Dragon again was in perfect timing. And I think the biggest thing is as well, Yagao now returns to wave right around the time that maybe would have been tested with his ulti up and available. And you were talking about how this is a secure lane for JDG's 2v2. The response from anyone's Legend having a strong 2v2 themselves, but we know now with Destiny available, it adds another layer where you can go to these side lanes and start influencing as Yagao.
And this is another game where anyone's Legend front to back should be relatively favorable, just because, you know, you do need some time for poke. You need to have TF in situations where you can favorably pick. Unless you have the caliber, the green gun, as I like to call it, because I'm not as well versed in ability names. Basically, unless you have that, Jinx is going to drastically outrange you in team fights.
Line comes through. Destiny used once again right into ZDZ. Under turret gold cards there, but I think Yagao just wants to keep him at bay while 369 gets solo time with the turret. That's a lot committed towards the top side. 4 members there. And for anyone's Legend, they take the dragon. In the meantime, Forge even pushing a massive wave up to this turret. Looks like there will be a good trade-off.
Yeah, and because of, again, the win condition being much more focused on side laning in this game, would much rather have plays on the Jayce than have a first Infernal Dragon, so okay. I think overall both teams are relatively happy with that trade, given the win conditions of their compositions. But, you know, at the same time, nice to see anyone's Legend grabbing what they can, given the state of topside and how many resources JDG invested.
Ooh, even now. They've actually just tried to bombard Kanavi. He gets rooted down, but he's out. Hope in now with his ulti as well, and Xiaohao's first blood. The Twisted Fate there in response, even though Yagao has no ulti. Now Missing will go down, but the gold card at the ready as Forge is flashed on. Not sure what you expected out of LeBlanc, as it's the 1-for-1 trade, but first blood does go over to JDG's 369. Ignore top, that's just some heavy trading. And it was anyone's Legend, Kelsey, who started that little ambush.
Yeah, and the thing about Aphelios, and we just mentioned this, is that unless you have your green gun, Aphelios isn't going to be even with the range of the Jinx. that doesn't really matter if you're engaging into him. You know, I think that Aphelios perhaps is the Cho counter champion. As we see him jumping in here, he's got the red and white guns, and he doesn't necessarily even start to do damage until he shows up here, but you're seeing a little bit of that power with the ultimate coming out of the Jinx when he's able to get in range of you and you're in these close quarters fights. Aphelios is going to be a huge monster, despite the fact that JDG's composition is more optimized for buying some time with the Jayce and Nidalee play.
And I think as well, you know, like some of Hope's poke as well, something to look out for. Hope now has a Dune Quiver too, and Berserker Greaves are well and truly on the way. For JDG, the 80 carry only ahead by 300, but focus towards mid, focus towards top, an 800 gold lead for 369, and about 400, maybe a little bit less for Yagao. So solo laners once again, Kelsey, in this series are having a great time of it.
Yeah, and I think, you know, oh, hold on.
He jump back in. Javelin toss not going to connect.
He has no E, so...
The Forge is coming up though, and this is a LeBlanc with a blasting one, so APB respected. Kanavi finds him at point blank range as Root comes through. Xiaohao over the wall with a sonic wave. Execution, denial, and completion here for anyone's legend. They pick up their second kill.
So in that situation, when you're not respecting the LeBlanc roam, you either kind of have to all commit for the Camille with no E, or you're in a situation where, okay, we can't overstay this, we have to just get out. And since they didn't really commit to either, Yagao getting hit by the E, or excuse me, Kanavi getting hit by the E, and they have to, it goes down. This should be a free Rift Herald for anyone's legend.
A much better early game here for AL. Still behind in gold, but the Herald should be able to get something off here. And the kill going over to Xiaohao too, excuse me, wrong player. As we look at the replay, Kelsey, and Kanavi just not expecting this. I think the lens ran out literally as Forge went through the brush.
And LeBlanc is a champion that is heavily contested by both teams, right? Very frequently banned against both JDG and anyone's legend. Both of these players very happy to pick it up when they can, and we're seeing just a little bit of the threat and the damage that can happen when he's able to trade heavily in the lane and get priority, make the roams happen before TF does. If TF doesn't have ultimate up, then LeBlanc's going to be a huge threat on this map.
And I love as well, like playing around that window, Yagao only just got the ulti up and available as well. And now that he has it once again, I'm curious to see if JDG can get the ball rolling a little bit. We know how volatile Nidalee can be for JDG. The poke as well that we talk about. And relying on the fact that this gold lead continues to go swimmingly. But anyone's legend having a lot more punch in this second game. And as Dragon spawns in 50 seconds, Kelsey, I want you to set me up for what we're going to see, because we are getting close towards these first items. Only the Eclipse up in the top lane as the Mythic completed.
So this is the window where you want to push out the top wave the way that JDG have been, almost textbook every time. And then using that priority, it's very easy to, you know, your top laner has the option of standing in fog or rotating first. And JDG holding that vision as a result, because they know that ZDZ is in base. Not too concerned, able to disengage if the teleport comes through, and knowing that 369 will get a nice trade of plenty of plates if they do end up getting that one.
Which is just going to be the case, feels like anyway, right? 800 gold. Still continues to hit ZDZ pretty hard, and there's a level lead at this point for 369. That TP versus TP, you know which one you're scared of more. JG in front of the Dragon, while the Herald's just been placed down by Xiaohao. They want to get Forge further ahead. He's only picked up assists, he's 20 CS himself, but excuse me, that's not even the play. It's just about adding pressure. While Xiaohao moves into room, Forge gets knocked up, missing, gets him as well, but it's also on the back of Kanavi. The Nidalee exploded from the fight as Betty now hitting Hope, and you can see Herald whittling away as well. JDG have lost their jungler, and yet again, it looked bad for anyone's legend, but the play turns.
Yeah, I think there's just not an awareness of what exactly is happening in the mid lane, because JDG pulling the Dragon while Yagao is getting effectively zoned off or having to deal with that Rift Herald, else he loses plates in the mid lane. So I think if they just back off and they let JDG start poking the turret, deal with the Rift Herald, and then either give the Dragon or look for a re-gauge after that with the Destiny's Gate, then I think that they're in a much better position. So it seems like they were not quite connected on the fact that Rift Herald was being dropped in the section anyway.
Not what we're highlighting recently, is it? We'll look at the replay again, because anyone's legend came from different angles. As Missing's ulti went for one, but Cho with a great engage on the other.
So the camera before we saw this fight kind of was more focused on mid lane. So we didn't necessarily see that they were trying to disengage. They were trying to get out of that dragon pit. So I kind of misspoke earlier on that, but just not really able to group up with Yagao before Chocho gets a very good ult off onto the Nidalee, and they managed to chain the CC and take members off.
It's nice that anyone's legend, in this game have a much better idea of how they want to play out this composition. We see that the strong sideline threat, right? We have ZDZ and the Camille, who has been behind in CS, but hasn't given away too much to 369. Forge in a great position as this LeBlanc, and Betty is that backline threat, the Jinx that we highlighted. Kelsey, there's so many good things to say about AL in game number 2, and it feels like this game's going along very swimmingly at the tempo that they want.
Well, one thing to note, right, is JDG were so effective because their sidelines were basically uncontested in the mid-game last game. But in this case...
Hang on. Everfrost there, kickback for Kanavi, but flashes into the rocket. That gives Betty a nice little assist and a kill onto Yagao. Now, there's a problem, and I see it is that Xiaohao is getting fed.
Yeah, like I said, there wasn't an answer to any of the side lanes, right? It was just a point where, okay, I guess we're going to have to go 5 mid because we can't beat anyone inside, so JDG are just going to control those waves, rotate to whatever objectives they want. But here, Camille will scale better. Yeah. They have a better 2v2.
Down, a good sonic wave, AoE damage from Betty too. For anyone's legend, another turret to fight the dust. But look at Forge. Forge is level 11 LeBlanc with flash, with everything up and available, and Chocho getting knocked under turret, maybe a bit of a mistake. Gravitum looking to take him down, but he goes Golden's missing, buys his own time, teleport in the back line as well. JDG just got a massive shutdown as Yagao comes in. Anyone's legend sticking around too long. Forge didn't pull the trigger, and JDG, they're the ones that are laughing once again. A flash gold card, Everfrost. Those were so many shutdowns back to back. And that just spells disaster. Flush away by Forge. 369 runs forward. They won't be able to get the mid laner, but they got so much from such a simple overstep.
It was a very nice, basically, TP from Jayce. They had the 2 globals available with the Destiny's Gate and TP coming through. I'm not quite sure about the chase on LeBlanc because 369 probably had some time to go top, but they're going to just cede this T1 over to the Camille, which is not really what you want as the game progresses. So we're going to get a replay of the 2v2, basically just seeing very good play from Forge, able to land these E's, and then good play from Xiaohao able to land these Qs. Decent by far his highest win rate champion in the LPL right now.
Yep.
Redeeming himself a bit this game after last game.
But as we look at this replay in the main fight, I mean, kind of tragic for AL considering that you could see the dive coming through, but missing with a great hook, buying time himself, and everything after the fact from JDG, cleaning up the mess they made in the early game.
And I kind of wanted the 369 just to back even before that last pick that we saw and try to answer the Camille a little bit earlier. Just because if Camille gets this turret, if Camille manages to get to 2 items, it's a little bit scarier to fight for 1v1 in the side lane. And you won't get the really easy, straightforward setup.
We begin again though. Hang on, anyone's legend have found missing this time around. Good soul flare, depth charge used before he dies. But JDG burned their teleport to get back to this, I believe. Excuse me, it was actually Forge who came in as Herald is taken away. Only the second Herald, but you're not getting a time to talk once again because JDG are getting caught out with their plays with their head in their hands, and on the other side just doing something different as ZDZ actually Hextech ultimatum on top of Kanavi. Forge jumps in and won't be saved by 369. Kanavi dead again.
I think Chocho is having a little bit of a better time on Leona because he engage fights, doesn't necessarily have to commit, a full screen away. He just drop the Leona ult, doesn't start off the fight ahead of his team. Also, the flank angles that we're able to see from ZDZ on this Camille are a little bit stronger this game. So, big credit to both of them for how that fight went and played out.
As 369, look, trying to bring something back to JDG at this point. He's the most fed member. He looks like the most successful member. As Dragon spawns, I also want to point out that this turret going down without teleport means that he has to make a quick back and a quick return. Dragon sitting there and staring anyone's legend in the face. It's a Hextech Dragon again, Kelsey. And, I mean, anyone's legend have the same condition JDG had in game number 1. They're 2 steps away from securing a soul and having this insane burst damage.
Yeah, so they are going to have to look for Missing to walk in first, to land some poke from Nidalee and Jayce before they can force AF off. Nice to have the Destiny Gate just to get vision on anyone's legend, so they should know that ZDZ took that Hex Gate.
So I'm curious though if he can make the flank work. His ultimate not up and available just yet, trying to buy time as Dragon pulled towards JDG. Smite needs to be perfect for Kanavi. The Shoujo once again to the backline, but no one's doing damage to Dragon. It's taken by anyone's legend. DDC goes in, then pops on out. His ulti now available as Yagao, trying to run them down. They need vision, they need summoners, they need speed. And Yagao, gold card only, just next bit for Kanavi, looking for the chase. The poke again, needs to connect, the flash away. They got the Dragon, they lose only Chocho. I redeem that as a worth, Kelsey.
Yeah, it's definitely worth. They're now on Hex Dragon, excuse me, Soul Point, with the Camille, with the Jinx, with the LeBlanc. That's going to be a very devastating composition to have to deal with as the game goes on, you know? I think that anyone's legend adapted. They said, okay, we need an answer to the Sidelane. We can't just run back the Orange. Definitely seeing that pay through dividends here, especially as they had to face check the Dragon this time, right? Camille actually in position before the Jayce in this situation this time around. So it didn't even matter if they didn't see the flank. Basically able to just walk up position and threat so that JDG's backline feels like they can't necessarily hit for free. Having lower range means that Betty should just be able to run these fights in those scenarios.
I mean, especially this level 11 point. I'm about to have a look at the items here as our lower third disappears. The highlight of Forge, who's also been playing well on the Anyone's Legend side. But yeah, Rapid Fire kind of makes that a nice eventuality. And I want to point out that, you know, with Kanavi being 0-4, with Yagao not really getting these amazing ultimates off, you're targeting people like Forge who just disperses. We can see that JDG are in a difficult position. So Kelsey, in this game, I need you to tell me what JDG do from here, because they're up against Soul Point. They have to fight at the next Dragon. And even though gold's even, it does feel like with the way you're describing comps, Anyone's Legend feel like they have full control of this game number 2.
Yeah, and I will say that 369 is still very strong, right? Still in a position where he should be able to make something happen with Kanavi shadowing him in a side lane, and then they are then in position with the agency to rotate to neutrals first and still get that kind of poking position off. I say that Jinx is longer range in a front to back scenario. Anyone's Legend are basically just incentivized to pull neutrals off spawn and force JDG to walk into them. But here we go.
Missing bit deep here. Dredge Light doesn't connect, and a depth charge that doesn't take Forge out either. It was the Ignite that ticked down, and they dove that. They sent a lot of ultimates off. They tried to get their poke down, but again, JDG just falling short.
And we're seeing Nautilus sort of fall a bit in priority in other regions, but LPL still loves their Nautilus, and then when we see it in these fights, it just turns into paper at a certain point in the game. Definitely way lower in terms of the damage, flat damage combos, in terms of the tankiness, so not a coincidence to me that he's engaging in, and then Leona just has to use the W to win out on that trade, and everyone else on Anyone's Legend turns Nautilus into dust.
I mean, Missing still doesn't have Significant as well. That's got to help with it. Missing here in this game. It's been tragic as Yagao makes the engage on top of Betty. Flashes away, but Gravitum and Hope finishes it off. There's the flash response. JDG still with fire in their bellies. As Baron's now live, they're moving up here, Kelsey. And we know that Anyone's Legend will have to face check, but they're out a little bit early. They poked them down. They're still running forward. And JDG, they're going to ARAM for a little bit longer.
And JDG want these types of siege scenarios where they can use their poke and force people off of that in these open spaces. They don't necessarily want to be in, you know, the choke points. They don't want to be fighting around the neutrals where...
Solar Flare under turret. I don't know how this goes. Forge has just bursted down 369. Your strongest member dead. JDG still considering the siege to continue, but again, I don't know what they expected, Kelsey, when there's Leona, there's a LeBlanc.
Yeah.
There's a lot of gap close on Anyone's Legend.
Yeah, and all you can expect is that they know that Anyone's Legend is about to be 5 strong again, right? So they're trying to force something to happen before that happens in a 5v4 scenario, but they're way better off just continuing to poke and get that second T2 for free, and then backing with that lead and looking for a Baron setup, right? So moments before disaster here.
Oh, a lot of damage at this point.
Oh.
You were talking about the damage output of Anyone's Legend composition. Hope now in strife as he burnt the flash, diving down Betty, and it's soul point time. Now that Hope's taking a bit of damage, I mean, Anyone's Legend have the river control. Kelsey, how did JDG move in?
Yeah, I mean, they're going to have to look, like I said, Anyone's Legend is incentivized to just pull this on spawn, basically, and then force JDG to walk into closer quarters fights. Luckily, Yagao is about to have the Destiny's Gate up, so that will give them some vision on any flank angles Anyone's Legend try to execute. There we go. It's popped instantly. So now they just... Oh, nice.
On to ZDZ now.
I don't think he can win this.
No, it's buying time. ZDZ doesn't want to re-engage. JDG stick around in the river, hoping that poke goes off. The longer this dragon takes, the more they can achieve. But Yagao has just walked into 2 people. Ignite dropped down onto ZDZ. He wants Kanavi to help him out. As picking any card at this point needs to be gold. The engage started on Chocho. Well, Anyone's Legend, they've got the Hex Dragon.
No.
They now jump in. AoE galore. It's a bounce out to ZDZ. Hex that ultimatum. And Hope in close range. The only person left alive. But Anyone's Legend, no. He's a slimmer of hope at this point. A triple kill for Betty and AL in this series. Bring it all back.
Ace.
And I think the JDG overall had the correct idea there, right? Space it off, pull them off the dragon. We don't want them to start it because that'll force us into a close quarters engage to try to get Xiaohao off of the dragon. But unfortunately, in this particular scenario, Yagao gets a little impatient. They're able to see him, they walk close to the dragon, they pull it, and then this nightmare scenario happens where Anyone's Legend's hope isn't necessarily connecting. I also think, credit to Chocho, nice positioning, able to catch most of the spears that JDG launched their way. Creating space, also making sure that Missing's engage went onto him. And look at all of that from the Super Mega Death Rocket. Insane amount of damage from Betty in this fight. We can see why Jinx is such a big priority pick for Anyone's Legend as he moves around, basically avoids almost every engage. The combination of Missing's spacing and everything else, but Betty probably looking at an MVP this game if he keeps it up in terms of how he's playing these fights.
And it's hard, right? Because I also feel like Xiaohao, for how he played the early game, is well-deserved of one as well. Like, Anyone's Legend in this game pretty much did what JDG did. They've been quite intelligent themselves, and I feel like AL been capitalizing on the fact that Kanavi doesn't do much here on the Nidalee, that Yagao, once those ultis are down, you talked a lot about Forge being able to make the map movements necessary. A really good adaptation in the series. When AL, we just considered them like, okay, they were kind of gapped in so many ways in game 1. I didn't consider the potential comeback that we're seeing in game number 2 is with the Baron. They are pulling ahead with gold.
And I do think that, you know, Anyone's Legend just diagnosed very well in the draft phase, and in general were a lot more proactive in terms of what their jungle could execute. The fact that they didn't get the level 1 off JDG in this game gave a small head start to Xiaohao, and he did execute on it.
Almost dying. They burned a lot for that, but Solar Flare should make a Death Rocket at this point. Yeah, and the cooldowns aren't big at this point as well, Kelsey, so... You know, for Anyone's Legend, pick up the Baron buff. It might buy time for JDG, but still, the Baron power play has done enough at this point. And I feel like with the 3k gold lead and the Dragon Soul in the back of our mind, the only thing that can come through for JDG is the potential soul and the poke out that we've talked about. But look how strong AL are at this point in the game.
Oh yeah, and again, because of how Chocho is positioning, how ZDZ is threatening these flanks, definitely a lot of panic scenarios that happen around neutrals, but if they can steal an Elder, you know, maybe you can get that really, really accelerated shock blast that basically almost one-shot Betty in the previous game, and that would be the scenario that comes to fruition here.
True. I mean, I look at the roster and I think, okay, well, there's some tanky members in Xiaohao and Chocho, but Forge and Betty, if they get hit directly with that shock blast, is going to hurt quite a lot. If anyone's legend, put in the front line in front of Betty, making a lot of sense here as the Baron helps him push as well. You can see that JDG are moving down, but it's too late. Turret goes down. Baron power play has been about 2.2k. And Kelsey, I think you and I are just going to sit back and relax for the time being, waiting towards that order and JDG being forced to make their final move of what could be this game too.
And I think just from the side of anyone's Legends perspective, this is a time when they've brought in Betty, right? Betty didn't necessarily have the best season, but he did constantly look like a highlight on that Rogue Warriors squad. So basically, in terms of this rebrand that's happening here, they kept Forge, you know, despite Maple being an option on the roster. And
yeah, back from PCS.
Yeah, not many people are expecting them to do exceptionally well, but I think they're definitely punching above their weight, and there's just win conditions that make that happen.
The gold card comes out, but anyone's Legend have already started the fight and they want to complete it. Look at the backline. DDZ with a huge flank angle is missing, already goes down. Hextech ultimatum on top of Hope, but DDZ is such a bruiser. Exploded with a super mega death rocket, and for anyone's Legend, their only trade is towards Chocho as Kanavi does nothing this game. King of the jungle, king of absolutely zilch. As Xiaohao has his way, 18-9. Anyone's Legend have blasted all of JDG once again as Betty. Look, you can see 369 wants this, but he's got a lot of range to play with it. Betty knows that he's going to need to play next to his team.
And for ZDZ, I don't want to see him play Ornn anymore if he can play Camille like this, right? Constantly aware of what angles he can approach from, getting pretty strong picks overall. So, you know, I just want to see more of this as if we go into a game 3, which at this point, looking pretty likely Hysterics.
Yeah, let's look at the replay, because again, it started with Forge and the brush, and JDG, this is the fight they wanted to start, but didn't look hopeful as soon as the solo play came down.
Oh, and then following up again, looking for... Betty gets pretty low here, but look at how much space EDZ creates, and this allows Jinx to continue free hitting despite being relatively low HP, and heals up right with the license.
Right, and Elder's now spawned as well. Hope has the perfect guns, I will say. Hexgate taken once again, as Chocho flashes in with the solo play, missing with the engage, but into the backline, 369 is destroyed. Anyone's Legend making this look too easy as Betty gets the reset. Excited as all hell. And anyone's Legend with one member left remaining. Kanavi, I don't know how he gets out of this one to buy his time while doing no damage whatsoever. DDZ will take him down, and then anyone's Legend are going to take us to a game 3, Kelsey.
Yes. Yeah, this is just a game 3 situation right here as Kanavi goes down. You could argue maybe the 5th pick Nidalee was flying a little bit too close to the sun, you know, for JDG, trying to bring that one back, trying to make the jungle acceleration plays happen and have that poke in place to deal with the Jinx. But there's a reason why Jinx is so powerful globally right now. Jinx is very effective in these fights, very difficult to touch. If one person goes down, she just takes over, speeds around, very hard to land onto, and love seeing the draft adaptation overall. I am kind of, the question that I have remaining here is